Okay, chill. You're making a lot of
probably
personal attacks right now. That's my story, okay? Damn. My parents weren't doctors, but they were fucking money retarded. So, like, they're filing, like...
because I have a lot of friends from where I went to high school that they'll make the claim like, I'm too poor to go to college. To which my response has always been, if you're poor enough, like I was, it doesn't cost anything to go to college, right? That's not true, right? I mean, you get your free tuition, you often get enough scholarship, need-based scholarship to afford.
Wait, hold on, wait. That's
most
not
of your
true.
expenses. So
That
was my experience.
Well, that might have been your experience, but you still have to take out loans, and you'll still have to like not work if you're doing full time, or you could try to work on the side, but it's not always. I don't think it's completely and totally free. Like you're gonna need a place to live, you need food. I don't know if you can loan out all of that, can you?
I mean, it could. Well, no, you can. I mean, in terms of taking out the loans, definitely that is true, right? So you're if you're poor enough, you're almost always you're pretty much always going to be offered enough loans to cover your tuition. Like I know that me personally, right? Like when I was in undergrad and even when I was in grad school, I was offered such a high amount of well, Pell Grant originally in undergrad, and then actual loans in grad school to not only cover my living expenses and my tuition, but also to actually get a check in the in my bank account at the end of the semester. So loans, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. But I don't know. I feel like right now there is enough. Like if you're truly poor enough, I think you end up having tuition-free college, at the very least tuition-free if you go to state schools and stuff. I mean, private schools are always sort of their own category, but I think state schools are at least where I live. I don't know. Maybe Texas is like a particularly generous state when it comes to education subsidies, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know because I had to drop out of school because I was working too much. But I don't.
Yeah, working too much is different, right? I mean, if you're
well,
if
but
you're
I mean, I was
literally
working
just,
because I don't think I could have covered the full cost unless maybe if I lived on campus, maybe I could have. I don't know if I could have taken out enough loans to cover, or maybe I just didn't want to because I was too scared of coming out of music school with like $80,000 in debt or something. Taking out loans to cover tuition is one thing, but I think if you take out loans to fully live off of it, that sounds like a lot more money. That sounds really scary, but I guess it's possible. But I feel like at that point you have to be digging into private loans and stuff because if you're talking about room and board and food and transport, like everything without working for 4 years or 5 years.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I work. I went to school full time and worked the whole time. I mean, I don't. I don't think my experience. I went to a pretty working class. Like most of the people that went to my university went there because like it's like like basically it was just the local college essentially. I don't think my experience of like working full-time hours and going to school was like super unique. It's pretty, you have to work different kinds of jobs though, to be fair. Like you can't work an office job and be going to like class all day during the day.
Yeah,
right?
I guess it's probably, I probably just didn't want to take out the extra federal loans because I didn't think my degree would pay for itself. So I didn't want to have like $80,000 in debt or something. That's probably right. And the other thing I would say is that like the FAFSA is really brutal too. Because when you fill out, how old are you?
I am 25.
25. When you fill out the FAFSA, it only takes into account your parents' income. No debt, no assets, none of that is considered, which is really scary. So like if your parents make a decent amount of money, if they have a lot of debt, you're completely fucked.
Yeah, for sure. No, the FAFSA, that's one. But I think that's almost one of the arguments for like not having the need-based system in the first place, right? Or like maybe having because ultimately, if you're making a program need-based, you're always going to have this like middle gap, or you're always going to have like these edge case of people that are like falling through, the what do you call it, falling through the middle, right? Where it's like, oh, like both my parent, like one of my parents is a lawyer, one of them's a doctor, but they have so much debt that they just cannot afford to help me at all with school, and it's like,
okay, chill. You're making a lot of personal attacks right now. That's my story, okay? Damn. My parents weren't doctors, but they were fucking money retarded. So like they're filing like Chapter 13 bankruptcies and shit, but they have a lot of money, but they've got a fuck ton of debt because they're standard American, like with cars and houses and shit. So
yeah,
I imagine it's probably the case that there's like a lot of like middle class America that's like making
Yeah.
70, 80, 90,000 a year, maybe six figures, but they've got like 3 fucking cars and they got a fucking house, and like their disposable income every month is very, very low, and they might have a fuck ton of credit card debt and shit too. Although maybe I am describing an edge case. Maybe my parents were exceptionally bad with
No,
me.
I was almost one of the omega fucked people where I lived with. So I pretty much had always lived with my grandma, but because I wasn't formally adopted by my grandma, I still had to report my mom's income, which was much higher. My grandma basically worked at a grocery store her whole career, and we actually had to go through like the legal adoption process to just to report my grandma's income, which was actually more accurate because I mean I lived with her, right? I mean she was the one supporting me.
Yeah,
so.
that was also my experience because I'd been financially on my own since I was 16, 17. And when I went to go to college to fill my shit out, I found out that I had to use my parents' financial information. I'm like, you fucking serious? And it's like, if you're not like an actual ward of the state, like an orphan. That's why I got married to my first wife, was to have preferential treatment on the FAFSA. Because for my first year of college, I got almost nothing except for some like Hispanic bullshit or whatever, which was like amounts to like $500. I don't remember what dumb little grants I qualified for.
You went to college when you were 16 or 17?
No, I'd been financially. My parents had ended up moving away when I think I was around. My mom moved out when I was like 14, 15. My dad moved out, I think, when I was 16. And I did there was like a work study program at school where you could do janitorial work after school for 2 hours to pay for your high school. And then I had a job at McDonald's as well when I was 18. But I'd been financially independent since. And then as soon as I graduated high school, I moved out with my grandma's. So I'm in my apartment paying all my stuff. And I hadn't had any financial support from my parents since I was like 16, 17. And then I find out that when I go to fill out my FAFSA, unless I'm like a fucking orphan, I still have to use their tax info. And in Nebraska, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Nebraska is like the only state in the fucking country. Okay, some people are saying you could have filed as an independent. The FAFSA doesn't go on your tax filings, my dude.
Or like emancipated yourself.
Yes, emancipated is going through the courts to basically get freed from your, which is a whole legal process.
Right.
Or you could kill your parents, or you could have a child, or you could join the military, or you could be married. But that's why we got married. But I don't think I could get it my first year because in Nebraska, I think it's the only state in the country where you're not an adult until you're 19 or something. So we had to wait 1 year to get married. We couldn't do it at 18. We had to do it at 19, or maybe for some things. It's really weird, but yeah, that's why I got married the first time. Is because the FAFSA fucked us.
Yeah, but I mean, so I guess your argument would just be like I'd prefer just a smarter need-based system versus.
Well, yeah, that's always the
system.
issue with means testing. But there wasn't an argument. I just wanted to bitch and moan about my life. Sorry. But better needs-based system is nice. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
People are saying apparently they've
argument...
changed the rules real quick. I'm reading this. If you don't live with your parents, you may be considered an independent student in terms of the FAFSA. Maybe they've changed the FAFSA rules since I was in college, but the FAFSA was wild when I was there. Your taxes and all that shit didn't matter at all. Didn't matter what the fuck. Your parents could be living on the other side of the country and never talk to you in 20 years or 18 years, and you could go to file and they'll say, sorry, like you need to get your parent info unless you've got like, it's ridiculous. Sorry.
I think the only exception to that when I was filling out the FAFSA was when, because my dad basically was like never around. He was certainly never around financially. And I think the one exception was that I didn't have to report my dad and my mom's income, but that was because they were divorced. Not because like if they were still legally married, that would have been like another layer of absurdity because I would have had to somehow figure out what my dad made. But at the end of the day, though, it was that was the rule. It was like you had to be like considered. You had to basically put like your legal guardian, but that didn't include some like common law understanding of like you've lived with her for like the last 15 years. It literally we had to go through the formal adoption process, which it was only pretty expedient because I was over the age of 18. Apparently, adopting an adult is actually pretty easy compared to adopting someone who's below 18, which I guess makes some sense. But yeah, it sounded like for your situation though, the emancipation. Well, I guess if you were, well, I don't know, if you're past 18, there's no emancipation. I don't know what the best solution is for. I guess like what I did was, maybe your grandma could have adopted you. But
my grandma, maybe. I don't know if she could. That actually would have been really interesting because my grandma started getting really weird. She had dementia problems. So when I was 18,
oh yeah,
I think it was when I was 18 somehow. I had a power of attorney because I was managing her finances and everything because she like was mind fucked. She couldn't do any of her shit. So I wonder if I could have just taken, if I had power of attorney over her, I wonder if I could have just went to a courthouse and like had her adopt me and me just like fill out everything. I wonder if you can do that. Can you have power of attorney over somebody that adopts you? That would be really interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. at least for us, we had to appear in front of a judge, and he like questioned us about the adoption because it's for him it was so bizarre that an 18-year-old was going through the adoption process. He didn't understand why we were doing it. He was like, you guys understand that this like you're already an adult. This basically does nothing. Like the only thing this would change is if what he told us was like the only thing this would change legally is if your mom dies and doesn't leave a will, you would not like automatically get a portion of her estate. That's all this would change, right? And we were like, yeah, sure, that is all it changes. And he's like, well, okay.
I'm sure they must get more people for like student loan shit or something. I imagine there's people, but
well, yeah, I think that was probably just something he was unaware of at the time.
Yeah,
I don't know if this was like a popular thing, but no, I'm sure like there are people that maybe do more fraudulent adoptions, let's say, like, oh, let's find like the poorest adult in the whole family and you can get adopted by him, and we can claim a bunch of money on your FAFSA. But
anyway. But the second wolf will taste glory that the first wolf will never know. That's what wolf are you?